Welcome to the Alpha Wolf Impact Club. I'm Tim Weintraut, and this is where we shine a light on small companies with big ideas. Our mission here is crystal clear. We want to identify, support, and champion game changers. Those companies that are tackling massive challenges, revolutionizing industries, saving lives, or making us more efficient. For example, Peter Evans of Xtract One. Xtract One is disrupting the physical security market. Xtract One delivers a digitally driven patron screening solution that radically enhances the patron experience while significantly lowering security risks and costs. Xtract One is without question a impact company. And unfortunately, in today's world where violence seems to be taking hold in all kinds of forms, anywhere where we have large gatherings of people becomes a target rich environment. Their AI assisted weapons detection platform is a game changer. But I'm going to let Peter tell you more about that in just a moment. This is not to be taken as investment advice. I am not a certified financial planner. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. Hey, everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a long overdue follow up. I know I've been getting the emails and the texts and everything, but this is a very, very busy man. Peter Evans from Xtract One, finally here. He's sitting in an airport, guys. Just got off a plane. The last thing he wants to do is sit down and have an interview with me, but he is doing it. So, Peter, look, I know you're busy, man, and I appreciate you taking the time to make this happen.
Well, Tim, it's always good to catch up with you. And yeah, we are a little bit overdue, but I really didn't want to do anything till we done our earnings call because then we could talk more openly about how we did and what the earnings were. And yeah, it is very, very busy. I just kind of roll off of a plane. But I didn't want to catch you as soon as I could right after the earnings call so we can continue some of these great conversations we've been having so far. If the noise
So,
is a little busy, let me know, okay?
yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, I can't hear anything over there. Uh, you had a hell. Yeah, I mean, look, you missed on the number. That's not important to me. What's important to me is the backlog,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that backlog is looking pretty solid.
Yeah, the backlog is the best indicator. I know that a lot of our investors like to see the press releases because they want to know how we're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's like me checking in with my children and saying how's the university going, these things, and the investors want to know that. They want to have the pulse of the company. So I get that, but the press releases don't tell the full story. And after a
Right.
while, they're the same story over and over again. You know, hey, we saw another school, we saw another school, we saw another school, and so it isn't adding a lot of meat to the story. The backlog to me is most interesting. Those almost $50 million of contracts that we have signed, those are signed contracts of people who've tested the technology, used the technology, evaluated against competitors, and they built the business plan to say, this is what we need to do. And they've signed up. And in many cases, we will take deposits from those folks. So that's showing their intent. And then just comes down to a matter of timing. We have one school district. They want to deploy one school every 2 weeks. Cool. We've got other school districts who are only signing up for the high schools right now, and they'll do the middle schools next year, and so on and so on. So, not only is the backlog good, but it's also a little bit of a predictor about the future. If you think about a school that's just signed up for the high schools right now, and then they're going to go sign up for a couple of dozen middle schools next year. And as long as we keep delivering and delivering the outcomes they expect, it's not only a great predictor of future revenues, but a great predictor of repeat revenues and repeat orders from those customers.
And we have talked about this before. You have a unique situation where you can have high growth. I mean, really high growth, but you also have reoccurring revenue, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, this is a recipe that can change very quickly, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the dynamics of the company.
Yeah.
And
Very much so. I love the recurring revenue. I personally like SaaS business models because you just keep stacking more and more and more, and that alone will take you to cash flow break even. And it provides a nice, stable, space for your business. And then on top of that, as you sign upfront deals, well, they'll pay down deposits and that's money in the bank this month, this quarter. So there's benefits to both. We have a nice mix, and it varies quarter by quarter, but roughly 50-50, 60-40, that mix and that split. So we're building that recurring model all the time. And then on top of that, what I really like is a lot of the customers that we have, many of them are starting to come to the third or fourth year of their contracts from when they signed 3-4 years ago. And right now our churn is zero. We've only had one customer who's dropped out, primarily because they're a not-for-profit organization. They funded on grant monies. They ran through the whole 3-year contract, but they didn't get the grant money to continue. Other than
Mm.
that, we've got 100% recurring, customers, many of them signing up for another 3 years. So we're very pleased with that. And many of them are saying, we're signing up with you because the support, the continuous innovation, the features that you keep adding to the technology keep reaffirming the value that we're getting with
Which
you.
your competitors can't necessarily say, right?
Well, I don't know everything about our competitors. I really don't know everything about our competitors, but it is an interesting, and anecdotally, it is interesting when we hear from a customer says, "Yeah, I'm coming up for renewal, and I can't think of any time that that competitor called me and gave me a software update." Now, maybe they are, and they just don't know about it. I don't know, but we're making sure that when we're delivering that value, we're telling people about it.
Yeah.
New feature functionality. We just delivered their 5.0 software release. I was showing it to a customer this past week. I was over in Europe, and he was blown away. He thought, that's really cool because now I've got such great data insights, not only on how many people walked through and how many people alerted, but what they alerted on. Was it a stroller? Was it a laptop? Was it a gun? Was it a micro compact, subcompact? And getting that level of insights and that data for people is value that they start seeing us continuing to deliver.
Right.
And to me, as we deliver more and more of that software value, you're just stacking more and more software, which is high margin on top of the existing base.
Is it was the and I'm sorry because I didn't get the opportunity. I had some personal stuff that has taken place that kind of took me off my game for a little bit. But
Mhm.
the earnings call, I didn't get to listen to it.
Mhm.
But with the one gateway, with
Yes.
is the backlog? Does that have anything to do with the manufacturing capabilities right now?
Well, a couple of things. There's sort of a, good news, bad news sort of story. I don't know if I'd call it bad news, but, we'd originally built a business plan for the one gateways, estimating how many that we would sell each month and how many we would ship each month. And that was based on all the beta trials that we'd done over the past year since we'd announced a GSX a year ago. And, I'm pleased to say that we've exceeded that forecast. We're probably in the range of a 2 to 3x what we originally thought that forecast was, which is a great story, but it means that we have to invest in doubling the manufacturing capacity, and we're on track to do it as fast as we can because, otherwise customers are going to wait a little too long. We don't want them waiting that long.
Right.
And the faster we can double the capacity, the faster we can ship units, the faster that we can convert that backlog to revenues. And so, there's a little bit of catch up to do there. We were wrong in our forecast. Unfortunately, we were wrong in the right direction. I'd rather undershoot the forecast and over deliver it versus the other.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Right.
And so, I'm really pleased with the one gateway response from the marketplace. 2, 3 years ago, when we started down this journey with the product, I really knew it was going to be a market maker. It was a little bit of a bet and a bet in the company. We had to put a lot of time into the R&D, a lot of investment in the R&D, a lot of investment in the first 2, 3, 4 customers who were beta partners with us along the way. And that's very, very costly to do. And so a lot of investment, but it's starting to pay off in terms of the orders and the pace of orders that we continue to get.
Is any of the tariff stuff is that impacting you at all?
Nope, not so far. But then
Okay.
again, what I usually do with people when they ask my questions, I kind of look at my watch. I go, well, as of 2:32 this afternoon, because who knows what happens? I mean,
Right.
right now, Ontario's been putting out advertisements that our current president doesn't like, and so who knows what's going to happen? It's a very unpredictable world we're in right now. But right now, um, there are elements of the old North American Free Trade Agreement that still have played out regardless of the current tariff conversations. And one of them is that devices that are used for security are not affected by tariffs, and we
Okay.
fall under that umbrella.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Um, I want to highlight something that you and I actually talked about right before we hopped on, but
Mhm.
there was a guy on LinkedIn that did a really thorough evaluation of your system. And I mean, I thought that was such a powerful article because of this guy's background, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Nick Aldsworth is a very interesting person. I've met him numerous times now. We've talked numerous times. We've hit it off. Nick is he was essentially the author of Martin's Law in the US. And for those of you listeners who aren't familiar with Martin's Law, there was a young gentleman named Martin who lost his life during a bombing that happened in Manchester, England, at an area underground concert. And his mother began to lobby the government to take more action around screening for these kinds of incidents, these kinds of weapons. Nick wrote the law that was passed. And when there's what happened at Yom Kippur this year in Manchester area, if I believe correctly, there was a tragedy that occurred, and a number of people were knifed in a synagogue. And these are terrible things that are happening in the world right now. And Nick is one of the first people that the law enforcement organizations in the UK and the government and people who are responsible for these kinds of things, they call. He's very, very well respected. He's very, very well connected. So for him to invest the amount of time he did and, to be very involved in a trial activity that we did, and his observations, like he's very smart and he's looking at every nuance of the security dynamic from the people, from the training to the flow, massive protests that were going outside while we were doing this demo. It was the uh, former Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, was speaking that evening. And so the security was very, very high. And he actually recommended using our solution for that event specifically. And he's recommended for a number of other events that are coming up. So, it was high praise, and I'm very, very pleased by how we performed. I'm very honored to have been chosen by him. And we'll continue to do what we've been doing in the UK and across Europe, where the predominant issues are knives, and that's something we do extremely well in terms of providing people a fast ingress, the lower alerts while catching those edge weapons.
There was a couple of things that really stood out for me, and one was that uh, he loved the fact that and you're very transparent,
All
and you're not
countries
trying to
giving
overhype
any unknown
anything,
person attention
right?
give you any
Which
item, including
I
blood,
think that
to
speaks to
transform your
who you've
life.
been this
Do
whole
not
time,
accept
right?
and notify
You're not
airline
trying to
personnel to
over
leave.
promise and under
Do
deliver.
not leave
If
luggage
anything, you're doing the
unattended
opposite, right? You're
or
under
carry
promise and
on
over deliver.
checked luggage.
Yeah,
If
well,
such
it's
is
an unfortunate thing about the physical security industry, and in fact, a lot of the tech industry. If you think about how the tech industry is built, there's a lot of venture capital money in it, and then a lot of private equity money, and there's incredible pressure to have, to be the next Google and have your stock value race to the roof, and your revenues grow 10x every single year. We've all seen, the Silicon Valley startup days where, these companies were barely doing $10 million of revenue and they were getting sold for $7 billion, the crazy things. So, it's created a little bit of a strange culture in the security world, cybersecurity and physical security. And that's led to a lot of, let's just say, questionable marketing tactics. And if there's anything, this industry is built about trust and relationship.
Right.
I think I've told you, Tim, a story where I was having lunch with a CSO who ran security for one of the NBA teams, and it was a Tuesday. And he said, "Go say hi to Tim for me, or make sure to say hi to Tim for me." I thought, Tim, he had already knew who I was going to have lunch with on Thursday, 2 days later, and they'd already talked about the product, the technology, the company, the support, and these sorts of things. The industry's small and your reputation, it has to be golden. And so we've taken an approach of making sure to be highly transparent about what we're doing, how we do it, and what we don't do.
Right.
And it's I think a brand that from day one that I've been trying to build here, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt in my mind you're getting there, right? You're, I mean, people have been, I think, unduly hard on you.
Hmm.
Uh, for you can't control the share price. I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody realizes that, but you really can't control the share price, Peter.
Yeah. Well, I kind of look at it this way. If I was looking at kind of the track record of the company, and it's not me. I have a great executive team. We've got a great group of people. You've met people like Joshua. You've been to
Yep.
our booth at the trade shows. I think of some of the folks that we have in engineering, the folks we have in sales now, some of the folks in marketing. We've got a great group of people who really love what we do and are very passionate about taking care of the customer. But, so I look at it, you know, um, we've come from a couple $100,000 of sales in 2000, 2001, which were paid pilots. We just booked 16 million in the last quarter, which is a very nice run rate. If I do my math correctly, where it's at like a 60 something $1 million run rate. We're gonna have some quarters that'll be a little higher and some will be a little lower, but we're just gonna keep on tracking on that trajectory and getting bigger and bigger. The big thing will be converting those bookings to revenues as fast as we can. And so I'm proud, that 16 million for this last quarter came through focusing on the customer success. And the more we do that, the more they tell 10 friends and so on and so on.
The sad thing is, Peter, as much as we would like this to be a peaceful world,
Mhm.
it's becoming more and more clear to me. I mean, Charlie Kirk, Minnesota,
Yeah,
the tragedy there. This isn't going to get better, unfortunately, right? I mean, it's like wherever there are large groups of gatherings of people, that is a target-rich environment,
yeah.
right?
It is. Will tell people that our business is doing very well, unfortunately. You look at, again, we just talked about Martin's Law. Well, because of that unfortunate tragedy where a lot of young people lost their lives, this law has been passed, which is now mandating that any venue above 800 people in the UK has to now screen for weapons. And so theaters and places like that, it's funny, you go into any of the theaters in downtown London, the average lobby size is to 8 foot square. There isn't a lot of room for a lot of screening, and it's where our systems fit in very, very well. And so, but the Martin's Law is now being adopted in places like Singapore and Australia and New Zealand and these other countries. It's set a precedent. And so we're starting to see in the same way that 3 years ago, we focused on arenas and stadiums, and we felt the pull to get into
Yeah,
healthcare and into manufacturing and into schools. We're now feeling the same pull to get into Europe, to get into Australia, to get in Singapore, to grow in Japan. And so, we're running as fast as we can these days, but then trying to also make sure we built a scalable model that keeps the OpEx relatively flat. So if we can continue to grow the top line, say doubling every year while keeping the OpEx growing single digits every year, cash flow break even is just around the corner.
yeah. I mean, and that's really what it comes down to, right? I mean, everybody
Yeah.
wants to know when that's going to happen,
Yeah.
right?
And so, when I look at our business plan that we built for the year, and again, there's variability because if all of a sudden we see a quarter like we saw a few quarters ago, where all of a sudden our subscription revenues, new bookings are 70% of all revenues. That pushes a lot of that revenue and that break even out. It'll come over time. It'll keep stacking up. Um, but and then there's other quarters where all of a sudden we'll see a high preponderance at say schools because they get grant money and pay right away. We'll get a higher preponderance of upfront deals. But in general, if we plan for sort of a 50-50 mix, that's what we built into our business plan for the year. And we look at our pace of what we're doing with smart gateways and our pace of what we're doing with the Xtract One gateways, we'll be cash flow break even within the year in a few quarters. And so that then changes the dynamic. And what's interesting to me is there's an investor group that's very focused on high growth, high growth. Okay. They don't care how much money you take in, just keep growing, doubling, tripling the top line every year. Then you've got an investor group, which is a little more conservative, is worried about how fast to get cash flow break even. I
Right,
think I think we're, and those are somewhat mutually exclusive. Okay. I kind of think we're an interesting company that we're serving both audiences. Because
right.
if we keep on the growth pace that we're on, if we keep on growing at the same rate, we'll serve the growth investor, but we're on a path to cash flow break even within a handful of quarters. So now we're serving the conservative investor. So both audiences are now satisfied without having to raise more capital. It's a really interesting model that we did.
You would think, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you would
Well,
think that.
we had a good day today.
No, you
Um,
did have a good day today. As a
So
matter of
Mark,
fact, I wanted to bring it up. I
yeah.
wanted to talk about the chart. You're right at an area of potential resistance. This is like a
Hmm.
little wall for you.
Yep,
If you can break through this and stay above it, um, personally, I don't like to see anything go straight up, right? Because straight up usually means it's coming straight back down.
that's right. And that's the history of what happened with Xtract One back in what 2018, 2019 timeframe. And
Yeah,
there was a lot of hype, there was a lot of promotion, there was a lot of being on business TV and all sorts of advertising, but there was promotion of the stock, not driving value of the corporation.
right.
And to your point, it went up and it went down.
Right. This to me, I would much rather see a pop, a consolidation, a pop, a consolidation, stair step up.
Yeah,
That's good, healthy growth,
yeah,
right? And I think we're seeing that right now. Now you're at an area where there's an area of potential resistance. If it, I think once you crack through that, you stay above it. That becomes your new floor, and then you continue that stair step up, right?
yeah. You're right. And so the things that we've taken on in the last, I want to say 6 months or so, once we felt more stability in the revenues and the bookings, not quite the same choppiness that we might have seen 12, 16 months ago. Once, we started to then take the story out to a broader audience. So there's the Planet Micro conference that was in Vegas. So there was, there's other ones that, I've been to recently over the last 6 months. I want to say every week we've probably got 10, 12, briefings that we're doing with the investor community, family funds, hedge funds, and things like this. And, contrary to popular opinion, it's not that we're trying to sell the company. It's we're trying to do exactly what the investors would hope is get a broader audience aware of what it is we're doing, what the marketplace is that we're playing into. We've got a unique technology to solve a growing product problem that has a lot of tailwinds behind it, right? So what are investors looking for, like institutional investors? Is it a big market? Has it got a lot of tailwinds? Do you have a moat around the capabilities that makes it hard for others to jump into the marketplace? And then they start looking at your fundamentals, your financials. And, so taking that story out to that audience is about getting more interest in the shares and participating in buying shares to continue to provide some underpinning to keep driving that price up, whether in a stair-step manner or otherwise, but on a continuous path forward. So,
It's I don't know if you noticed the rebranding here, but
mhm,
the the whole point of what I do and the companies that I follow, they are all companies that I think can have a dramatic impact on humanity, right?
thank you.
And here's the thing. Of now for the last 5 years, Peter, I have had nothing but pain.
Yeah.
But in the last several months, let's just put it this way. My top 10, the first one is up 1980%.
Hmm.
The 10th one is up 3 digits.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying here is I'm not saying that to boast. What I'm saying is that the market goes through cycles. Large cap, there was really the Mag 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
you had to do is put your money in the Mag 7, you're good.
Yeah.
That is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay. Their valuations are too high, in my view.
Yes.
Good companies like yours have been ignored, even though you have managed to work through a pandemic,
Mhm.
the worst supply chain issues in the history of mankind, the fastest interest rate hike cycle in the
Yeah.
history of mankind, right? I would call that a fairly challenging business environment.
Yes, sir.
And those companies that have been able to navigate that, and not just navigate it and survive, but navigate it and grow, which is what you've
Mhm.
done,
Yeah.
right? Have been rewarded how? By Wall Street.
Yeah. Ultimately, they are. Well,
Nothing.
and what we're seeing, yeah, nothing so far. What we're seeing, and if you even look like last year, the micro caps,
Yeah,
we're getting killed. And the fact that we were able to raise money at that time was a testament to, again, the quality of the story. Because there's a lot of companies who I know that were out there trying to raise money who couldn't.
right.
And the terms were like 41%
Horrible.
interest per year.
Yes.
So,
So what's happening now? We just had our first interest rate hike cut,
yeah,
right? And I think we're going to have another one real soon here. Now, if
Mhm.
that happens, that is a good environment for small cap.
Yes,
And there
exactly.
are a lot of good companies that have been ignored for a long time.
Mhm.
And I think those companies are going to come rip your face off rally.
Mhm.
And this market is going to change from large cap led to small cap led.
I think you're very right, Tim, and I hear the same thing from other investment banks that I talk to and other analysts like yourself. The market is going to swing, and it's going to swing down to the small caps, which is again, why I'm out on the road. I'm making sure that as many people as possible understand our story and understand kind of again the market environment. I don't think anyone who thinks the gun issues aren't going to go away and they're not going to become global in manner, and then talk about the unique model that we built as a business, as well as the technology and the differentiated value there to get as many people now watching the stocks and starting to participate in
It is,
anticipation of that.
it doesn't just mean investors. And I've
Yeah.
said this before and I'm going to say it again. You can be a ripple. And one person can be a ripple. I'm one person. And
Yeah.
I cover stocks that I think can make a difference in humanity. I can cause a little bit of a ripple.
Mhm.
It's when a lot of people join forces that you make the wave, right? And how do you join forces? It's not just that you're an investor. You can just be an advocate. You can be a parent that understands what it is that you provide and be asking your politicians why every school doesn't have this system,
Yeah.
right?
And that's a question everyone should be asking. You
Right.
know, every parent of every student should be going knocking on the door of their school and saying, "Why aren't you do something to protect our children?" Now we're out there doing this, and we'll take every angle we can to lobby and provide information and educate. But let's get as many voices as we can out there
When you get
speaking.
a groundswell of people, that is how you make change happen faster. That is how you make adoption happen faster,
Agree.
right? When you get a groundswell of people. And I've been pounding the table on this. I'm not saying this because, you know, I'm trying to help Peter out from having to do some advertising. I'm saying this because this is common sense. This is the
Yeah.
more people that talk about it, the easier it is to adopt. That's just
Well,
reality.
yeah. Well, it just let's take it one step further. I think I've told you this, Tim. My daughter, her very last year of high school, um, in the last week, someone brought a gun in with 50 rounds, right? We as a society, take Xtract One out of the equation. We as a society need to raise our voice. We need to protect our children in schools, right? That's just unfathomable that we wouldn't.
Right. Right. I
So
mean, and it's not
it's
just the schools, it's everywhere, it seems like, right? I mean, anywhere there's a large gathering of people, we should start making it these businesses that make a lot of money off of having people come there. Look, you got to protect your patrons, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And more people are doing that. I think what I see is what's a little bit of a challenge is when you see someone doing the analysis and they decide to go the cheap route, and it'd be better to do nothing. And that's unfortunate. Some people will always default to the cheapest solution. But there's always someone who wants to buy the Big Mac. Is it
Yeah.
really food? No. But so anyhow, so pulling back a little bit to the earnings conversation, Tim, I'm very pleased with the results. We had a great quarter, a record quarter in terms of new contracts, new bookings. Very pleased with how Q1 and Q2 are starting to shape up already. There was a delay in some revenues. I was giving an example of one federal organization earlier. Can't name who they are, but we're in sort of three different division areas, and because of all the rearrangements that are going on in the Fed government, as they look for efficiencies, everyone put the pause on deployments. And
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's just, it's probably somewhere in the range of, 10 to 20% of our backlog that was affected by that. And now it's not going away because it's mandated by that federal organization that every one of their venues will get protected.
Right.
And, we haven't won everywhere across the country, but we've won some significant, groups of organizations with multiple buildings.
Yeah.
And so, there's that, and there's other kind of one-time things. But I like those revenues today? Absolutely. Are they coming? Yes, they're not going away.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
those are some things that are beyond our control. Other than that, the things we can control, I'm going to double the capacity of one gateway, so I could get twice as many of them out the door because the demand and the orders are there, and that will convert to revenues.
So the one thing I wanted to ask, because I had somebody specifically ask me about it, was you got the ingress. You explained it to me.
Yeah,
People are asking about the anti-theft, the exit, right?
yeah, yeah.
Real quick, can you just give everybody an update as to what you've got going on there?
Yeah. So one of the things that we discovered as we built the one gateway is we were gathering enough data that we could do object detection. And so instead of like our smart gateway, like our competitors' products, if they suspect a weapon, they will go beep. And in our case, and one of the competitors, they will actually put we'll put a circle around where that suspected weapon is on the body. But it may not be a weapon. It could be something we've never seen before. It could be just too much metal. All the solutions will alert on too much metal. What we found with the one gateway is we're gathering so much data, and without going into the intellectual property of it, that I can now say that's a gun, that's a knife, that's a laptop, that's a smartphone, that's a tablet. And the idea being that now on the one gateway, if somebody, you, Tim, happen to walk into your favorite casino in Vegas and you've got a gun on your left hip, a knife in your pocket, the system will identify not only the two weapons, but what they are. And when I say what they are, I don't mean like a Glock 19 versus a Glock
Right.
43. They'll say that's a firearm, that's a large knife. So that's very interesting. We can actually give that level of data versus just beep and a circle. Okay. Now, where we are on the electronics is we've got this dialed in for some of the electronics, but not a full suite yet. We only have so many engineers, only have so much money to spend as we march towards cash flow break even. And so working with some retail organizations, they've helped us create a prioritized list of, if it was their preference, get this product, this product, this product, this product. If you can just stop the theft of those items, that alone is worth billions, and there's a great ROI for it. So the idea is I can screen for weapons on the way in, I can screen for stolen electronics on the way out. And we're actively working to improve and increase the library of those electronics with a lot of trial activities and some beta work starting about now. There's others who've looked at it, played with it, and things like that. But we're really getting into the deep end now and starting that work. Do I expect that we'll see customers signing multi-million-dollar contracts for the theft prevention in fiscal 2026? Yes.
Okay.
The ROI is so compelling. One large retailer shared with us that they lose something like $5 to $10 million per distribution center for things like stolen earbuds, Nintendo cards,
Wow.
Apple watches, smartphones, and things like those. So you start getting $5 million. If I could just stop half that,
Right.
$2 million a year with a single one gateway,
Right.
I think I can need to raise the price, Tim.
Yeah, I think you could do that.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
So it's showing a ton of promise. I'm really pleased with the innovation there. Have we got the full suite completely developed yet? No. Are we finding that working with some of these retailers, they're bringing us things and saying, can you find this? We had an interesting scenario with one of these retailers, and they had a particular item that was alerting on the way in. This a particular thing that each of their employees had
Oh,
uniquely.
okay.
And so we said, well, let's take one in our lab, took it up to our labs. Within about a week, we had to solve that, and it no longer alerted. And it actually showed them the possibility of identifying items and either putting on a white list or a black list. I want to alert or I don't want to alert on that particular piece of electronics.
Wow.
So now looking at their prioritized list, that's where we're starting to say, okay, let's dial the next product, the next product, the next product. And
Right.
once we think we've got enough critical mass on what those electronics are, then we'll really dig into very deep trials with these customers.
All right. The one thing I think people will be maybe concerned about, how are you on capital? I mean,
We're fine. We're doing really well.
you're fine.
We're
Okay.
doing fine. Not to worry about that right now. Who knows what happens in the future? We might all of a sudden say, hey, let's go do X million dollars on XYZ. But with the momentum, the customer that we've had, there are actually organizations who are coming us and looking to put money into the company, and
Okay.
we're able to tell them we don't need it right now.
Okay.
I think we actually have more cash in the bank than we started the prior quarter with. And that's a combination of people buying warrants. It's a combination of customers putting down deposits. It's a combination of One Gateway starting to monetize. So we're in a good shape.
Is there anything that I mean, I know you, but is there anything that's
Everything
keep
keeps me awake at
right,
night.
right, right, right. Anything that's
There-
in particular that's keeping you up at night?
Yeah, yeah, Tim, I'm kind of relentless in wanting to get stuff done. Um, it's actually, if you saw the other side of my laptop, it's got a big relentless logo on it. But that was given to me by one of the employees. Um, my big thing right now is getting more One Gateways out the door.
Okay.
All right, Smart Gateway's doing really well. It's nice, it's steady, solid state. It's that's really nice. We're getting more and more customers buying it, particularly in the healthcare environment. If
Yeah.
there's anything that's keeping me out the door, is getting more One Gateways out the door.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring this up. You had two salespeople that, if I'm not mistaken, were out for childbirth, right? You were down a couple of salespeople, so you were picking up some slack there.
Yeah, I always like being out with customers. And I really do. It's because it's fascinating to me how technology, we always talk about inside out versus outside in. And most technology companies are built inside out. A bunch of engineers sitting in a lab thinking they've got a great idea for a product. I mean, I look at the smart gateway when I first arrived at the company. We didn't have the tablets in it. We didn't have the access points. We didn't have the Jetson processors. We didn't have any of that kind of technology in it. And so the power draw of the sensors was so little. And you need an Ethernet cable to go back to the server to go do all the processing and then return a alert or not alert. And so the power draw was so little, we could just take power off Ethernet. Great idea. Brilliant idea by the engineers. Name the last time you went to Major League Baseball game and you find an Ethernet jack on the sidewalk. It and so an outside in company is one that you're watching the nuances of everything, how the customer works. How do people walk in? Do they listen to you saying, hey, keep everything in your pockets or not? And you have to really just watch every little nuance of that and make sure your product is designed to make life easy for people.
Yeah.
Security folks are very busy. They're checking IDs, they're checking bags, they're checking this. How do I make sure we are not a extra complexity for them, but we actually make life a lot easier? So I love being out with customers for that reason. Now, having said that, we beginning of August was the start of our new fiscal year. We got the whole sales team and the sales engineering team were out in the field, running all the demos, doing all the installs. We got them all into Atlanta. I was looking around the team at the table we had, and we've got a lot of really good A players now. And you'll meet some of them when you go to the trade shows, Tim. I really like our sales organization right now. And I also like what's happening with some of our partners. We're signing new partners, and I don't want hundreds and hundreds of partners.
Yeah.
Just 5 or 6 A players who really know what they're doing and can represent our brand the way we want.
Yeah. So you're feeling pretty good, aren't you, Peter?
I'm feeling good these days. Yeah, I'm feeling really good.
Well, listen,
I wish I could get more One Gateways faster, but other than that, I'm feeling really good.
yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's going to come, Peter. I don't know when it's going to come. One thing I can tell you is I'm pretty good at picking the companies. I'm not real good at picking the timing.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I suck at
But
it.
but Tim, if you were, right, you wouldn't be doing this. You'd be lying on a beach with Richard Branson.
That's true, right?
Right.
But this is a story that is going to. But I can't make the guarantees. But the bottom line is, I have watched this company. How long have we known each other now? It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's about 4 years or so.
Yeah. And look, um, this is one of these big companies that's going to all of a sudden be a big company, and everybody's going to go, but like, where the hell did they come from?
Yeah, yeah.
You've been struggling. This is going to be a what? I don't know when the company originally started with the founders, but you've been there now 4 years. This
Mm.
is going to be like one of those 10-year overnight successes, right?
Yeah, I mean, but if you think about it, I mean, prior to COVID, my predecessor and the team, they were kind of looking for direction. And they took in about 70, $80 million on the public market, as you said, stock price up, stock price down, which was a travesty. But there was a lot of time put into promoting the stock, not building a product that customers could use.
Right.
I gave you the example of an Ethernet jack and simple things like that. And there's, playing with chemical sniffers and playing with this idea and playing with that idea. And so there was a lot of experimentation, but there's no customers, there was no revenues, there was no partners, there was, and so, 80 million to have no customer revenues, no partners. And so I'm really proud again of what we've done. Are we there yet? No, I wish we could do more. I'd like to see us continue to grow at an accelerated rate. I'd like to see us convert to revenues faster. I'd like to see that share price continue to drive upwards, like we've seen in the last few weeks. Um, and those are things that we owe our shareholders who have been invested in the company for a long time. But again, I go back to your point. Um, you know, 2021, we did $200,000 of business on the Smart Gateway, right? We were burning at one point $2 million a month, and losing millions and millions and millions. We're on the path to cash flow break even. We just did $16 million for the quarter. That's a run rate of 64, 65 million. If you look from 200,000 to 65 million, in four
It's getting
years,
there.
5 years, it's getting there. So I'm
It's getting
feeling good, but again, I'll come back to the comment. I'm a monumentally impatient man. I would have liked to have been here 2 years ago. Could we have been here 2 years ago? Sure. Double the sales organization, double the engineering organization. Now you're out of cash. So it's a balancing game that we're playing here for aggressive growth while keeping that OpEx manageable.
the other thing too, when you get the validation that you got from the guy that posted on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
those things, and you start getting more organizations that are re-signing, right?
Mhm.
This, correct me if I'm wrong, but the sales start to get a little bit easier, right? Because you're not now you're getting recognition, and
Yeah.
it's right.
Well, again, this is an industry about trust and relationship. And referenceability is critical. When that guy I had lunch with on the Tuesday is telling the guy who I'm about to see on the Thursday, who I've never met before, yeah, this is the meeting you want to take. Referenceability is very, very important.
Yes.
And, in an industry like this. And that's why we spend so much time making sure that we're not only delivering great technology, but we then make sure we're investing time to set up the customers for success, over rotating on training, over rotating on spending time, say, let's make sure we've got the con ops and the flow of people perfect. Sometimes it's the littlest thing. We set the divesting table back 2 more feet and we'll hold 1 foot over. All of a sudden, you're getting 10% more people in per minute. And little things like that. And when you invest in the customer's outcomes, that becomes your referenceability that goes to all the other customers.
Yeah.
So
Now you're doing a
anyhow,
tremendous job, Peter. You and your team, Joshua, the whole everybody. I mean, I really like you guys. There's certain guys that you want to see do well because they deserve to do well,
yeah,
right?
well, thank you for
And
that, Tim.
you're in that category for me, right? So I mean, when it happens, and I do believe it will happen. I can't tell you when. My crystal ball sucks, but it will happen. I truly believe that, right?
Yeah,
You're
I do
you're on the
too.
right path.
I do too. Everything just keeps going. Are we gonna hit some potholes in the road? Sure. Are you gonna get a flat tire? Sure. That's why you're here, is solve those issues and keep the car moving as fast as it can down the highway.
Right. Peter,
So
you're sitting in an airport. You've been more than generous with your time.
I
We'll
I
do
gotta
this again.
we'll do this again. Let's aim towards doing a wrap up on the year towards the end of the year, or a kickoff to the new year in January. How about that?
That sounds like a plan.
Let's do it,
Okay.
my friend. It's always good to talk to you, Tim.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you to all your also your listeners and all the investors who take the time to kind of follow us. Keep watching the space. More good things to happen. I cannot wait for the new year and some of the things that are lining up.
All right, my friend. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to shut this off.
You bet.
Thank you for tuning in to another CEO interview here at Alpha Wolf Capital. Today we had Peter Evans of Xtract One. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, please do us a favor, give us a like, How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are very important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.